Hello, my friends. On today's podcast, I'm speaking with Jennifer Broxterman. She is the CEO of Prosper Nutrition Coaching and NutritionRx. And in this episode, she talks about how she has built a nutrition coaching program that flips traditional nutrition coaching on its head to offer a model that is sustainable and gets better results. So if you've been looking to launch or improve the nutrition coaching program at your gym, this is the episode for you. Keep on listening. Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. Today, I'm super excited because I'm making a new friend I just met moments ago. I can't wait to introduce her to you. It is Jennifer Broxterman, who is the CEO of NutritionRx. She's a registered dietitian and sports nutritionist, and she's here to share some of her nutrition magic with all of us today. Welcome to the podcast, Jennifer.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so glad that John Berardi put us in touch with one another.
I know, anyone who knows Sean Berardi is a friend of mine and is welcome to the podcast anytime. And so I'm so glad we connected. I mean, we've just been talking for a few minutes and I can already tell you have such passion for the work you do, such energy you're going to bring to this podcast today. So I'm excited to dive in. First, you just want to tell people a little bit about yourself and what you do at NutritionRx?
For sure. So I'm a registered dietitian and sports nutritionist. I work with everyday folks up to the highest level. I've had some NHL hockey players and Canadian Olympic athletes. But the most beautiful part is really, I find the everyday people, helping them using motivational interviewing, meeting them exactly where they're at, and then creating a plan that feels both realistic and filled with joy so that food becomes a really positive experience. And then outside of that, I've been a food and nutrition university prof for a number of years. So I am a huge nerd at heart. I love the science of staying current. I write articles for Precision Nutrition as well to help their organization out. And then I guess on the side, on top of all of those things, I started yet another company. And I actually have a nutrition certification business for gym owners and their teams, because my husband owned a CrossFit gym for 16 years.
Wow.
And so we really figured out nutrition coaching in a physical fitness space that wasn't just a run a challenge a couple times a year and like, here you go, here's your paleo meal plan. I mean, don't get us wrong, we stumbled and made those mistakes earlier on in our career, but we had a fully thriving year-round multi-six-figure nutrition coaching business. So now I also not only work as a dietitian, but I help gyms bring in solid nutrition programs or maybe revamp a program if they've been struggling with their own nutrition program.
Yeah, fantastic. That's such exciting work. And you're in the right place because our listeners are gym owners, and many of them I know from writing to me and talking to me about them have programs, some of which they really like and are going well, many of which stumble for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. And so I'm so excited to share your wisdom and experience with all of them today. Let's start in with your approach. So I know we were talking before we got started that you have a model that you've kind of flipped on its head a little bit. So I'd love to start there and talk about the framework that you use to think about nutrition coaching. So can you explain it to our listeners?
Absolutely. So I'm going to start in what it looked like before the revelation came to me.
Sure.
And I called it the very, traditional, what you think a nutrition coach is supposed to do.
Yep.
So like many of our listeners, I thought I was the expert. I had all the knowledge in my head, and it was my job to educate and share as much information about nutrition as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, I almost feel bad. I call it the fire hose phase of coaching, of like, if I just blast them with a lot more information, of course they're going to understand this information and then be motivated to take action. And I tried that cheerleading approach of like, I'm going to be so positive and like, you got this. And as much as I had these great intentions, I realized that knowledge or assigning meal plans or assigning macro ratios while trying to be this cheerful, upbeat coach had about a 3 to 6 month expiry date where people would go along, right? They felt my energy, but then all of a sudden they started to dodge me. They didn't want to come in for their appointments. They were embarrassed that they couldn't fulfill what I was asking them to do. And they felt like it was their fault. Now, a good coach constantly reflects and checks in. And honestly, I take ownership of that. That was my fault as a coach, not their fault as a client. And so very serendipitously, I don't believe in coincidences, I started to just go down this rabbit hole of reading some different books. And I stopped reading books on the topics of nutrition and I started reading more books on the science of behavior change. So some of the earliest books were things like Switch, how change is hard, and those are the Dan and Chip Heath brothers.
Yep.
That black book in motivational interviewing in fitness and nutrition. I was reading, just starting to learn about this topic of motivational interviewing, but I did not really understand how to do it. And again, very serendipitously, I bumped into two researchers at my university where I was a professor who were like, we are now starting to certify healthcare professionals in the skill of motivational interviewing. Are you interested in coming to a workshop? So I was like, okay, I love to learn. Why not? And then when I was in the workshop, I had an existential, almost like crisis moment of like, I have been doing everything wrong. And yet I remember feeling really scared because if I don't tell people what to do, how am I going to show my value to the client? How am I going to make this a valuable appointment? I've just gone to school to be a dietitian. I've done all of this, additional training. And I'm only supposed to ask questions and not give answers. How is this going to work?
Yeah.
But
it's such a common pitfall, right? I mean, you're not alone. I experienced it as a coach. I think anyone who spends all this time gaining all this knowledge thinks the first thing you're supposed to do is share the knowledge.
Right.
It's such a natural kind of impulse to want to do. And when we're trying to help others, achieve what they want to achieve, the knowledge gap is not where you start. Right? No. In fact, the knowledge is free online these days.
It is. It is. And that's going to lead us very quickly to an important picture in just a second.
Yeah. So keep going. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's great. I think it humanizes how coaches might feel that when you're going through a massive paradigm shift, it's okay to feel scared of like, I only know this one way. I had to take that leap of faith that what they were sharing with me was going to be better, but I didn't have any lived or proven experience as a coach that was going to be a better way to coach. So I put on my scientist cap and I was like, well, scientists try experiments. And guess what? Some experiments go well and some experiments blow up. And if it blows up, this is a reversible decision. I can go back to keeping my clients for 3 to 6 months and doing the whole meal plan, knowledge, me tell you what to do and try to encourage you to hold the course. I was like, worst case scenario, I just go back to what I was doing. Best case scenario, this is actually a much better way to elicit behavior change for the long run. And my clients are going to feel more supported. And I'm going to feel more fulfilled and less frustrated as a coach so that I'm not beating, a dead horse, trying to hammer a message into someone that's clearly showing ambivalence or clearly showing resistance and me trying to beg or to argue or to prove or to information bomb them to change their behavior. There's got to be a better way because I don't enjoy those days on my job where you don't want to feel like you're locking horns and fighting a client to get to the goal they told you they want to go to. So insert motivational interviewing. I gave myself 1 year. Like any good experiment, you need to not give up too early. And I remember just feeling like I was throwing all my resources, not quite in the garbage, but just I put them on the bench and they weren't the ones up to bat. And instead, what came up to bat was powerful questions. So I started to make myself a list, and it's okay as a new coach to look at your cheat sheets and notes often. I believe I even had it on a cork board right beside my desk with a list of about 20 or 30 powerful questions. And I don't know if we're able to screen share in this podcast, but if you want, I can pull it up and even pull out that old resource if we want to add it to the show notes for the audience to have it downloadable.
Yeah, we can totally add it to the show notes. I love that idea.
Love that. Super happy to, just give this away if this helps lift other coaches up. And I'll give you some of my favorite powerful questions. I would start off with not, hey, here's what we're going to do today, information. My first question is just getting to know them and their past a little bit better. So I would open an initial appointment with, hey, fill me in. What's most important about your past, especially in the areas of, your eating habits, your exercise over the years, the big life events you've been through that have shaped you. fill me in. What do you think I should know more about so I can really individualize this to you as your coach? But I need to get to know you a little bit better first before we jump into the nutrition part.
Yeah.
And then people would just
Talk.
start
Yep, they would
start
just
talking.
talk. Yeah,
And what
I
was
love that
so,
language of fill me in. It's a little like it's like we're
yeah,
friends. Catch me up. What have
yep.
you been doing? What have you been up to? It creates a rapport right away that is very friendly and approachable.
And it just makes people, and what I call the opposite of the clipboard approach. So the clipboard approach used to be, I thought I was being client centered. I had good intentions. Do you drink alcohol? Do you grocery shop? Who was the cook in your house? Give me a
Hmm.
recall of the last 24 hours. What did you eat yesterday? Tell me a little bit more about your exercise habits. And it was like a bad job interview where they were like, question, 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 or a bad first date of
Yep.
just grilling someone with questions, where instead now I go in thinking about a feeling. The first appointment is a feeling I want to create where they are heard, their life experience and opinions are validated,
Hmm.
they matter, they are an equal and a teammate, they're supported. And knowing that trust of like, I've got you, but you're going to be every step along the way in this journey with me. You're not going to be dragged up a mountain. We're going to climb and hike the mountain together. And I'm going to be here as your Sherpa, your support person. But your goal is to get to the top, and we're going to go at your speed to get you to wherever on the mountain you want to end. So
Yeah.
that's a
That's
feeling that's really important.
Yeah, I think it's great to distinguish that, Jennifer, because so much when people go into coaching sessions, particularly nutrition, there's like this kind of teacher and student mentality that people
Yes,
often approach it with, and what you're describing is like a co-creation, right? We're
right.
making this experience together.
Yep,
I might have some more information, but you have all the experience, right? So we need each other to move forward, which is, I think, such a
absolutely.
beautiful way of approaching it.
Totally. So that's one of my favorite opening questions. And then the next question has an asterisk about understanding their goals better, but I actually don't use the word goals. So I'm going to
Hmm.
role model what that question is for the
Great.
audience. And so my next question I often go into is, fill me in if we were to look ahead 6 months to a year into the future. Paint me a picture of what you see. Where would you love to see yourself? What would you be so proud of yourself to be celebrating? What's going to make this a really successful and positive experience for you? And specifically as your coach, what can I do to really support you in getting there? So yeah, let me into your brain. What do you see 6 months to a year out on as we embark on this journey together? And so by not asking goals, when I would say like, what are your goals? I would get those very textbook: lose
Yes.
weight, build
Yes.
muscle, have more
Yes.
energy,
Yeah.
run a marathon, whatever the case might be. I don't know for you, Michael.
Same.
Do you
Same.
guys ask that of your ninjas,
Yeah,
of your
yeah, I
audience?
think we take the same approach you do, right? Because when you ask people their goals, one is you get textbook answers. Two,
Hmm.
it infers that they should already have this figured out. They should
Right,
already know exactly what they want and be able to tell it to me succinctly. And the way
right.
you're offering is like, come daydream out loud for me, right? Like,
Yes.
just say out loud all the things that have been swirling around in your head that maybe you haven't articulated before. And if they
Right.
turn into actual goals that are measurable in some way, maybe we'll get there. I don't know, but let's just
Yep.
start with what do you daydream in your head really matters to you in the next 6 months? Where do you want to wind up? And I think that's a really great kind of opening exercise to just get them daydreaming out loud.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then as we kind of go deeper into this list, my third question, I normally only ask 3 questions when I get to know someone. So tell
Hmm.
me more about your past, fill me in, daydream with me about this future. And then I use, is there anything else, as a
Sure.
great catch all question? Because, yeah, is there anything else, any questions you're coming in with today you want to make sure we address either today in our upcoming appointments? Is there anything coming up in the future you want me to be aware of? Like, you're taking your family on a Disney cruise for 2 weeks in the month of May. Awesome.
Hmm.
We should probably have an awareness and plan that in. Or are you having a busy season of work in the fall because you're going to 25 trade shows over 3 months and you're going to be living out of hotels and suitcases and on the road?
Hmm.
Or is there anything else in your past? Oh, you just remembered now that's coming up that you think would be relevant. And so, especially for my more shy clients, it's just a one more round of non judgmental, open ended questioning to again let them feel comfortable to be vulnerable and to give more of themselves to the
Yeah.
appointment. So then again, I can individualize the
Yeah.
experience to who
Well
they are as a
said.
person.
Yeah, well
Yeah.
said, Jennifer. I think it's amazing. It's a really great first session. I love that you keep it simple. I love that it's open ended. I think that's
Yep.
something our listeners can go and take away right away. Before we go any further, let me ask you this question, because the number one pushback I hear from gym owners when I start talking about forming habits and doing mindset work and using motivational interviewing or any open ended questions,
Hmm.
oftentimes they get into this mode where the resistance they have to approaching nutrition coaching like this is it feels like therapy. I don't want to be someone's therapist. I don't want to get into the weeds of all the feels. I just want to teach them how to eat. And I think you and I both know that it's not ever going to work. But what do you
Right.
say to those people listening who are like, oh, I don't know if this is really. I don't want to be someone's therapist. I don't want to get into the feels.
Yeah.
What? How do you respond to that?
Okay, so a couple of thoughts. Number one, without judgment,
Yeah,
great self-awareness
yeah.
about your style of coaching, what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. So we'll come back to that. Number two, it's about the food, but it's not about the food.
Hmm.
Nutrition coaching is less about what to put on the plate. There's a component to that, but it's also the where, the why, the how we're eating, and it's so intertwined with feelings and stress. So if that makes that particular coach or individual uncomfortable, you
Hmm.
might be a great player just on the wrong seat on the bus. And
Sure.
so when I hire people for nutrition coaching to be on my team, I look a lot more for a personality type that loves to listen, doesn't talk over someone and interrupt, isn't just a knowledge bomber, but can sit in those uncomfortable feelings and hold space for someone to cry, for someone to grieve, for someone to explore their stress in their everyday life, because food is usually a symptom of something else going on. And so I do a lot of upstream problem solving with my nutrition clients, going, okay, this 10 o'clock chocolate chip cookie, raid the pantry binge, no judgment. I'll actually turn my camera around. In our office, I don't know if you can read the words on
I.
our wall, but it
Yep.
says, in this space, healing happens. Be curious, be kind, be honest. And I'm sitting in the client chair in my counseling office, but that's actually the messaging they see every time they meet with us is we're here to ask questions and give space and explore so the client can be curious, be kind, and be honest. And as soon as you add empathy and non-judgment, people will open up and they'll be much more willing and creative at problem
Hmm.
solving than feeling shamed or feeling like they have to hide parts of themselves. So I
Yeah.
think for the
Exactly.
coaches
Yeah. I
that feel
think because.
nervous,
Yep. Go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead, jump in.
I just want to say yes and you. I was like, yes, 100%. I
Yes,
very
yes,
rarely have any folks that come into MFF nutrition coaching who are confused about what food they really should be eating that is
right.
healthful. No one's like,
I
oh
always
wait, I
kind of
should be eating
remind them, like,
more vegetables and things. I shouldn't be eating cake every day. Like they know that. That's not the thing that's
right.
stopping them.
I always say to put them at ease as I go, I know you have the knowledge and skills inside of you, but the
Hmm.
intention isn't translating as well as you'd like with consistency day to day. So, my job, where I come in and I'm really strong, is I help you take all that good information up here in your brain and I support you in the implementation and consistency. And we're going to work together as a team until it feels as automatic as wearing your seatbelt. So it just
Right.
becomes this sustainable thing that you do because you love how you feel, and we've broken through the barriers that were interfering with the knowledge translating into your
Yeah.
behaviors.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit how you do that on an ongoing basis. You got past the first session, and then
Yep.
what does ongoing work with you look like?
Okay, so I'm going to use a bit of a photo to help us with
Great.
this.
And
And
we'll,
the
for listeners, we'll
ongoing work,
explain the photo
yes,
visually. Yeah.
for sure. So for those of you guys that can only hear my words, imagine an iceberg that has
Hmm.
5 layers deep. The top 2 layers are above the surface of the water. It's kind of like what we can see. And then the bottom 3 layers are the invisible bigger layers underneath in the ocean. So the very top layer is labeled as willpower. It's the tip of the iceberg. Then the layer below that is the knowledge layer. The third layer is habits underwater. The fourth layer is environment underwater. And the deepest fifth layer is mindset, which is underwater. So let's go through what exactly this iceberg means. If we look at diet culture and knowledge and nutrition coaching online, mostly you see what sits just above the water. You see diet rules. Here's paleo, here's intermittent fasting, here's keto, here's meal and snack ideas. So knowledge, information bombing. And then it asks people to try to follow the diet rules using willpower to stay the course. So how many of us coaches have had clients that have tried a diet, tried to get meal and snack inspiration, tried to follow the recipes, and then fell off and felt ashamed? And then they tried to research something new, and they tried as hard as they could. They white knuckle it. And then the holidays come, and all of a sudden it puts a huge roadblock in their ability to execute that knowledge plan perfectly, and they fall off. So when I coach, I actually sit down with clients right in our first appointment, and I say, through this experience, I want to build skills so that we fill in the gaps of the 3 deep layers. We're going to do a lot of mindset coaching. And within mindset, we're going to look at self-talk, we're going to look at certain phrases, and we're going to look at problem solving and resiliency. And I will come back to this in a second and give some real coaching examples. In our environment, we're going to make sure, this phrase I love to use is, make the healthy choice the easy choice. And in 3 layers, we're going to make sure your physical environment, like your kitchen, your workplace, where you physically spend time, supports the healthy choice being the easy choice. We're going to also look at your social environment, your friendships, your social support, because it's a lot easier when there's a pack of people around you who are encouraging you and role modeling similar behaviors, but you also get to be the ripple effect on your environment. So, you might be a leader at work where you actually take a proper lunch break and go outside for a walk, or maybe you set walk and talk meetings with some of your staff. How cool that you can influence the environment. It goes 2 ways. And then also with an environment, we talk about our online environment. Are you listening to uplifting podcasts? Or are you doomsday scrolling on social media, or body image comparison against people that don't have your genetics? So are you using your online environment to build you up and keep you inspired and connect with like-minded people? Or is there a lot of toxic negative comparison happening in your online environment that's maybe not serving your mental health, that we could eliminate or at least reduce? Then finally, we think about our everyday habits. And in a moment, I'll give an example of like coaching everyday habits. So I teased a little bit about the mindset, and I want to use you, Michael, if I may, as
please.
a potential client. So one of the things I like to do is, I call it sweeping out the cobwebs around our mindset. We're going to go on the deep, dark corners of your brain, and I'm going to just see if any of these phrases happen to exist and see how these phrases serve you. So let me give you phrase number 1.
I don't know if the
Phrase
podcast is
number
ready
1,
for the deep, dark corners of my brain, but you'll buckle
we're
up.
We're going to go there. If you trust me, if you're okay with that. Yeah.
100%.
Do I have your
100%.
permission to?
Yes,
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
So phrase number 1, and I'm going to out myself, I'm going to raise my hand, is something I've really had to work on for myself, is 3 slippery words. I deserve it. So have you ever noticed the little sneaky phrase, I deserve it? And you're working on a deadline and you're like, I can go get some takeout pizza. It's been a long week, low on groceries. I deserve it. Or maybe it's that glass of wine at the end of the day, or some Easter chocolate, or whatever it might be. Do you notice you use I deserve it and then reward with food or alcohol?
Yeah, I've been deserving ice cream for decades. Yeah, 100%. Yes.
So here's kind of a fun coaching exercise number 1 from I Deserve It, is now I don't get mad at myself when I hear I deserve it, but I have a reframe and a different tool. So the first thing was, when I hear I deserve it, I remind myself, what do I deserve? You know what? I deserve to be fit and healthy because I do work at my fitness and my nutrition. I deserve to have amazing energy so I have clear-headed thinking during my work week. I deserve to age well with not struggling with chronic disease, because I am someone that identifies as a healthy person, and I've been making consistent lifelong choices. So I deserve to be energetic and fit and healthy. Now, brain, I'm not ignoring you. I hear you calling for ice cream or cookies. So let me just go a level deeper. What I'm going to ask you, brain, is, what do you feel is the unmet need? So right now
Hmm.
you feel like you deserve food or alcohol to feel better. But if I take one step back and I look at it with curiosity, what's my unmet need, brain, that you think sugar or whatever is going to make me
Hmm.
feel better? Is it that I'm just exhausted? And actually, what I need is just a hot shower and an early bedtime and call it a day. Maybe I'm bored and I need to just call a friend and catch up and chat about the silly shows we're watching on Netflix right now.
Yeah.
Am I feeling really anxious and I actually need a brisk walk outside just to go clear my head? Do I need to have an uncomfortable conversation with someone that's been crossing my boundaries instead of shoving that uncomfortable conversation down, buried by a bag of chips? So now I don't get mad when I hear I deserve it. I just remind myself, like, yeah, you deserve to be fit and healthy and energetic and rewarded for all the hard work. But okay, that's a little like whistle being blown by my body. Huh, what's the unmet need? And then I try to reach from my health toolbox. Do I need some box breathing? Do I need to walk outside? Do I need to call a friend? Do I need more sleep? Do I need to have a healthy boundary? Do I need to stop working? Do I need to start working and stop procrastinating?
Hmm.
So if you think about it, Michael, you've heard
Yeah.
that, oh, I deserve the ice cream.
Yeah,
What do you think could
mine
be?
is 100% at the end of the night when I've had a hard day or a long day, and usually mine is being drained by having to be available to others. It's the
Yes.
thing I do to pamper myself at the end of the
Mm,
night. It's the thing I do to say, Michael, this is like your little reward for being available to everyone else. It's for you. And these days, and within the last 6 months, I just got a hot tub at my house, so I've been trying to replace my pampering of ice cream with just
yeah,
getting my hot tub for 10 minutes,
I
right? And
love
so
that.
funny, without even knowing we're going to have this conversation, it's a good example of one way I've started to reframe. I don't do it every time,
Her,
but
yeah,
but it happens more often than not, is that I'll just jump in the hot tub instead
I
of having some
love
ice
that.
cream. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, what I'm hearing as a coach, if you were my client, is the unmet need is you need quiet, you need
Yeah.
disconnection, you need people to leave you alone, and something that feels just very relaxing and self soothing, but not in the company of other people, or at least in a very small group of like trusted people. So now
Exactly.
I could
My
get
husband's allowed to
incredibly,
stay around. He's allowed
of
to be
course,
around.
we like him. We like your husband. He can stay. Yeah. But essentially, what you're now like is like, oh, when I feel triggered, I
Hmm.
understand why I'm pulled to ice cream.
Yeah.
Or I could insert this activity to get me to that same place of calm, relaxed, quiet, decompressing. And ice cream doesn't have to be the vehicle that gets you there.
Yeah. What I love
So,
so much about this approach, I mean, not only is the iceberg analogy, I think, really valuable, Jennifer, but the idea here is that, you're having people build awareness around patterns and habits they already have,
mhm,
a mindset they already have, and you're giving them lots of options, right? So I think it's a place where I see nutrition and coaching in general go wrong. It's just too
right,
dogmatic. It gives people a path to walk, and, and
right.
it's a very narrow path. And here I'm seeing that you're helping them swim in a whole pool of options and possibilities, which I think is is really helpful. People can be at their own creator, right? They can
Love
decide
it.
for themselves which way they want to go, and I think that's a really powerful way of working. I want to be conscious of our time, and I want to maybe spend time on one more topic, if it's okay, just to
Okay.
switch gears.
Yes, for
Just because I
sure.
know you've done so much work already, this front model, I hope people have been writing down because I think it's so valuable. But I also know you've done so much work working with gym owners, creating
Yes.
nutrition programs. So I'd love to just
Mm.
hear a little bit about, like, what's the kind of number one mistake you see gym owners make when trying to implement a nutrition program at their gym? What do you see them get wrong that you have a solve for?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. One is that they think a nutrition program is just running a challenge one,
Mm-hmm.
2, 3 times a year. Oh, we're doing our January paleo clean eating challenge. Who wants to sign up? Is this much money? Da 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 da. And then they run it again, maybe Memorial Day, and they run it one more time in the fall.
Yeah.
That's not really nutrition coaching. It is short-term dieting with no long-term behavior change or skill building. And I'd argue that most of those gyms don't make a ton of like revenue in the long run that's significant.
No.
And the impact, the more important thing is the impact on their members' relationship to food teaches them to be very on and off. So I'd say that's probably mistake number one. Mistake number two is when the gym owners are like, okay, I see a better way. I'm going to get a program on board they don't think about the right kind of coach that needs to be running the nutrition program. So most owners, what they do is they spread themselves too thin. I mean, we owned a CrossFit gym for 16 years.
Yeah.
I get it,
You
first
know.
and foremost. And if it's the owner who's trying to wear all the hats and be on the floor and worry about the fitness side and the PT program, nutrition is just this little like forgotten, you know, youngest child in the corner.
Little side hustle. Yeah.
Little side hustle that, you know, was a passion project, and then they never have any social media content produced about it. They don't necessarily have a devoted coach who is like really taking ownership. And so I'd say that would be the other mistake, is there needs to be someone who is taking ownership of the program. And so what I've started to do with Prosper in our gym was, my husband was the fitness guy and I was the nutrition girl. So I took ownership of our program. And because I took ownership, it grew and grew. And then it grew past a point where I could be a solo nutrition coach within our facility. So we started to look for the right hires of who could be a nutrition coach for us. And I would argue that personality is way more important than credentials.
Yeah.
Like you said, someone that's not dogmatic, is flexible and open-minded, is an excellent listener, can ask questions, shows empathy and non-judgment, and can sit in feelings. Someone who has that ball of characteristics is going to make a superb nutrition coach. And then I sort of joke, my second business came about as a complete accident in the pandemic. When everything was shutting down, I started to get approached by gyms, especially in Canada, where we were under the strictest lockdowns, going, you are still doing really well with your nutrition program. We're closed, but now we're really struggling on the fitness side. Can you teach us how you're running like year-round nutrition coaching?
Yeah.
And so I just hopped on camera and started to create modules where we would gamify the behavior and go into our resources, our iceberg. We play this fruit and vegetable rainbow 100 option game. Almost everything we teach is in the spirit of motivational interviewing, where we ask questions, we turn the activity into some kind of game, and we make it a fun experiment to try. Not black, white, you do it or you fail. Just give this a try and see if this tool resonates with you. And so I was having these other gyms approach me to be like, we are really struggling. We might go out of business. We think nutrition's our lifeline. Can you help? And so that's where Prosper Nutrition Coaching came to be. And so I was like, the owners were so stressed trying to keep everything afloat. I was like, okay, send your team to me. I'm going to do individual team training with your group of coaches who want to be nutrition coaches. I have a set of 20 videos on 20 different topics. They can, it's like Netflix. Everyone gets their own login account.
Sure.
They can watch the videos at their own speed. But then almost like a team staff meeting, I'm going to meet with your team 3 times for an hour. And we're going to work on getting your nutrition program off the ground so it works for your geographical location, your audience, your clients.
Yeah.
And so it just sort of sprung up where I had 10 gyms trained, 20 gyms trained, 300 gyms trained through the pandemic. And then coaches are texting me pictures, like Zach, a personal trainer, was like, Jen, I did your program 9 months ago. I've made $92,000 in nutrition coaching, and my members are getting way better results. Charisse was a CrossFit gym owner, and she's like, Jen, my mind is blowing. 28 of our members have signed up for nutrition coaching with me. My gym is on lockdown, but I have 28 signups for, 300 plus a month for nutrition. Like, this is going to be the make or break if we go out of business. And so I just kept getting those success stories. But yeah, the thing was, get the right
Good
coach.
for you. I think that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's it. Stop doing challenges. Nutrition coaching has to be a consistent force in people's life to have long-term sustained change. Find the right people who can really hold space for people. I love that you put personality, listening skills first, right? And those are qualities that are hard to train. So you really have to hire for them, right? And in many cases, people have to hire a professional like you to help build the structure and the skill set on their team if they don't already have someone who has some experience, just to find
Right.
the right model for them, given their demographic and how much
Hmm.
capacity they have. I love that. I'm going to have to pull it up there. I have a million more questions. We'll have to have you back on the podcast, Jennifer. We can talk more about how to build the actual program, how to price things, how to
Yep.
overcome resistance. We'll have you back for sure.
Love
But to
that.
wrap things up, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. I think that your approach to nutrition is absolutely in line with my personal values and ethics. I think many of our
Mhm.
listeners will find the same. And the way you describe it is also very approachable and accessible. I love that you bring models and games, and so I think you're a great role model for this topic. So thank you for bringing that to the podcast. How do people learn more about you and working with you? How do they find you online? So where do people get more Jen in their lives?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so starting off maybe on Instagram, our handle is at prosper_NC, and we can put that in the show notes.
Yep.
Our website is always up to date. It's prospernc.com, and that will tell you a little bit more about the nutrition certification and when enrollment periods are. And if you want to just email me directly, I respond to every email that comes into the business. It's info@prospernc.com, and that will get you to me, Jen Broxterman.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jen. This was a real blast. It's so great to get to know you. And I'm sure I'll be emailing you soon to pick another date to come back because there's more for us to talk about, I think.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michael, and thanks to everyone who listened today.
Yeah. Listeners, if you love this podcast, please let me know. Email me, michael@businessforunicorns.com. Leave us a 5-star review everywhere you listen, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.
Bye.